So now let's get to the college football playoffs as the matchups have been revealed. The top 4 is as follows. Not the Ohio State Buckeyes, unfortunately, but number 1, the team up north being Michigan. Number 2, Washington, UW. Number 3, Texas, the Longhorns. Number 4, Alabama, Roll Tide. Number 5, undefeated Power 5 champion, the champions of the Atlantic Coast Conference, Florida State. Number 5 on the outside looking in. And number 6, Georgia, the reigning back-to-back defending champions, lost in the SEC title game to Alabama. And with one loss, they are out of it. So it is well documented on this podcast that Kevin and I are Ohio State fans. Jaevon is the miserable USC fan. We will pray for him. But anyways, Jaevon, as the unbiased one on this panel, since your team has been out of it for over a month, just what did you think of this college football playoff rankings? Specifically with the top 6 overall, looking at the 2 who were on the outside looking in, but also the top 4 with these matchups between Alabama and Michigan and Texas versus Washington.
I think the committee got it right for the most part. I was kind of, ranting a little bit on Twitter about the playoff and, pretty much what was going to happen and what the outcome would be. I get Florida State, undefeated, Power 5 champion. They won their conference and, they went flawless throughout the year. Now, you could argue on how great their schedule was and their wins were and the strength of the ACC as a total. That's a whole nother conversation in itself. But it pretty much just comes down to what they've looked like the past couple of weeks when their, Heisman Trophy contending star quarterback in Jordan Travis breaks his leg and goes out for the year. The committee basically saw flashbacks of Cincinnati getting in at an undefeated record, and they get curb stomped by Alabama in the semifinal. And they saw when TCU ultimately gets to the national championship to play Georgia and that all-star team and get and proceeded to lose. It was the worst, highest, whatever the score ended up being was like 63 to 7 or 63 to 14. I forget what the final score was. Yeah, it was insane on how bad. It was the worst loss ever, in college football history. And that was in the national championship game. So they saw what the potential would be of what that game would look like. Now, I'm not saying that Florida State would lose to that degree and how bad they would potentially lose, because I think Florida State defense is one of the best defenses in the country. Now, on the offensive end, they're abysmal. They're unable to move the ball. I get they're playing with a third string quarterback. Tate Wanamaker was out. Their actual backup quarterback was out. The guy who played in the Florida game, basically their season finale, he was out with a concussion, so they had to go with the third string quarterback, and he basically was only able to put up 16 points against a Louisville team who, albeit is a solid team, but I feel like if Florida State would have won that game, and they would have blew out Louisville 40 to 10, Florida State probably would have been in the playoff. Now, I think that it's stated in the committee rules on how they kind of rank their teams. Coaching and players lost is going to be considered in the actual decision to be made. And I mean, I get Florida State, was definitely had an undefeated season, one of the best teams in college football. They lost their quarterback, and that's kind of what it came down to. I feel like if Washington would have lost their quarterback, or if, Jalen Milroe would have been out, or if, J.J. McCarthy would have been healthy, kind of would have been the same thing. Texas getting in, I think that's they're one of the best teams. The way that they won, they looked very impressive over the weekend against Oklahoma State. Obviously, we knew what it was with Washington, who was a heavy dog going into Friday's game against Oregon. A lot of people were picking Oregon to win that game. They were 10-point favorites, Oregon was, and Washington came out and kind of, handled business. They stood on business. It's kind of the phrase of the week this week. But Michigan gets in there. I think Michigan versus Bama is going to be a tough matchup for Michigan. kind of sucks for them. I'm not sure if Michigan is the best team per se in the playoff. I think probably the best team is probably Texas, in my opinion, just off of offense, defense. They have the best. I think they have the best run defense as far as these particular teams constructed. They're like top 5 rush and running defense. I think Quinn Ewers has a bunch of weapons on the outside, and Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy did get hurt in this game, but Steve Sarkisian came out and said that he'll be ready to go pretty much when the playoff starts or whenever things get going for them. But Michigan, I feel like is going to have a tough time against Alabama. Alabama, I did mention on Twitter, or X as we like to say. I basically kind of predicted what the favorites would be before they came out, and then right as they came out, I was like, you see, look, I did the Leonardo DiCaprio. Alabama is a slight dog, probably closer to the game. They'll probably be favored by the time the game kicks off. And I mentioned that Texas would also be favored, and the over will probably be like 60 something, and the over for the Washington Texas game is like 63, I believe. And I think the Michigan Alabama game is like 42 or something like that. So great matchups going on. If you guys want my prediction is Alabama probably upsets Michigan in the 1-4 matchup, and Texas beats,
damn right.
And then Texas beats Washington in the 2-3 matchup, and we see the rematch in Texas versus Alabama. Probably won't give my pick until later when that happens, but there's going to be a hell of a game. So I think the best game will probably be the Michigan or the Washington Texas game. That's going to be a great game.
I completely agree. And Kevin, I don't know about you, but it brought me great joy to see that Michigan reaction video to them finding out that Alabama was the number 4 seed rather than undefeated Florida State without their starting quarterback or potentially their backup quarterback. And so, Kevin, what were your overall thoughts on this college football playoff? And if you want to sprinkle in a little Buckeyes thoughts at the end with the transfers and the Buckeyes missing out on the playoff, go ahead. Let's hear from you on your thoughts on college football.
The system is broken. The system is in shambles. I heard it on Get Up this morning. The college football playoffs is becoming figure skating. The judges choose who gets to participate. It's not their schedule. It's not the record. It's the judges. The judges get to see you play 13, 14 games, and we're going to decide who's the best. Not the schedule. We're going to decide who's the best. And like Toddy mentioned, they have nightmares from Cincinnati and TCU. Cincinnati was undefeated. Came in there and got their face beat in. TCU was 12-1, lost in overtime to a Kansas State team, and they still made it in. And it ended up beating Michigan and lost 65-7, like Toddy mentioned. At this point, I'd rather just stop with the rankings every week because they don't stay true to the rankings. So just hold it to the very last week, and we'll just wait to see. Before Saturday was Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. Florida State beat Missouri in the championship game with a third-string true freshman quarterback. Let's not act like their starting quarterback tore his ACL, or the second string, Jordan Travis, of course, out for the year. But the backup just had a concussion, so he would have been able to play for the bowl games. But the thing that stands out to me, Toddy said it, the committee has in their rules, if a player gets hurt of significant impact, they're not going to make it. I know we all remember this. 2016, Cordell Jones, third-string quarterback. First game of his whole Ohio State career came in the Big Ten championship, and we made it in.
49.
So is it about the quarterbacks, or is it because they're in the ACC? They are treating Florida State like UCF in 2017 when they went 13-0. They are treating the ACC they're treating the ACC like the AAC, and it's completely a slap in the face. You want these Power 5 teams to go out there and be undefeated and do what they have to do night in and night out, and they're not going to make it in. We have teams like UCF going 13-0, and they're not going to get it. They have the quarterback healthy. They had everything going. Just because they're a lower school, they didn't get a chance to participate. I don't think it's no longer the 4 best teams. I think it's the 4 best things for television, and that's what this was. So it's interesting to see a team like Alabama beat a team like Georgia, who was number 1 in the country for all of 90 minutes all year. They go from 8 to 4. How does that work? Texas goes from 7 to 3. Just, you know what? Hold your rankings. We don't want to see them because they don't mean shit, because Ohio State didn't play and they got jumped because Texas beat Oklahoma State. Really?
Because you guys aren't good enough.
Oklahoma State almost lost to Oklahoma State almost lost to BYU. They beat them by 4 points.
Yeah.
And Texas gets in. I'm just saying, make it make sense.
Aren't good enough.
Make it make sense. No, the people who aren't good enough are the people who didn't even tune in to the Sunday award show, and those people reside in LA. Didn't even turn it on. Knew the art.
Nobody was talking about.
We got guys. Caleb Williams doesn't even want to play. I mean, Bryce Young played in a game that didn't matter, and he went out there and did his thing. I'm just saying, man. All Heisman players are built different. Now we get to see what he does. Last year, he was all in for a lifelong supply of toilet paper. This year, you don't want to play for a lifelong of Disney Plus subscription. I'm just saying, man. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. But he wants to play for the toilet bowl trophy and lost to Tulane. I think his pride's hurt. I think he knows that his team is subpar. And he's like, I'd rather just take the L and watch them lose and say, well, if I would have played. But, you know, he's just going to sit on his mom's shoulder and cry. So we'll see you in the NFL, buddy.
Who do you guys
Not the Disney Plus subscription. Go ahead, Toddy. Sorry. That got me.
Is it Ole Miss? Or you guys play
no, Mizzou. With their great running back that we're going to shut down.
Y'all going to lose that game. Who's the quarterback? Is McCord going to play?
I'd probably
probably. I mean, he's in the transfer portal. Julian Fleming just hit the transfer portal. I doubt either of them play. Marvin Harrison's not going to play. Denzel Burke's probably not going to play. This game is just a glorified scrimmage that happens to be on national television. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, the one thing I will say to address that question is Kyle McCord would be very smart to play in this bowl game, because this is the biggest stage that he will be on for the rest of his college career, or ever, like Kevin said, ever. Because as Toddy definitely thinks, there is no NFL in Kyle McCord's future.
There's always Canada, USFL. I mean, there's other routes now. It's not just all NFL. He can go play arena football. He can do whatever he wants. But that Ohio State thing it's sensitive. And like Shaun mentioned, the quarterbacks in the portal are insane. So Ohio State has a high expectation for quarterbacks. And like Toddy mentioned, we've always had a quarterback, and we still weren't able to get it done. So maybe we get a different kind of quarterback in here. We win the games, and next year we'll sit in the playoffs.
Yeah, Cam Ward, he would be a great quarterback for the Buckeyes. Also, there's Riley Leonard, who's out there coming from Duke. I guess he's going to Notre Dame. But just my quick thoughts on this is I do think that the College Football Playoff Committee got it right. Kevin is correct, though, that it's subjective. Like, they choose who they want. They've been trying to say, like, oh, we have this parameter, everything that we've talked about in the past, in the previous years when there's been a debate as to who made it. But to me, they got it right because no one wanted to see Florida State in there. Yeah, there are the people who are going to be screaming from the rooftops who are like, how are you leaving an undefeated Power 5 school out? It's not like they're leaving UCF out, but they're leaving an undefeated Power 5 champion out of the college football playoff. But as Toddy mentioned earlier, no one wants to see Cincinnati all over again or Washington all over again. The last time Washington made the college football playoff. Yeah, Jake Browning. Well, he redeemed himself tonight. But, it's just we've seen plenty of bad games. Notre Dame making it to the college football playoff. We have seen so many bad games throughout the almost 10 years of the college football playoff. And so that's what they wanted to avoid. Would you rather have Michigan likely cruising past Florida State, or would you rather have Michigan versus Alabama, Jim Harbaugh versus Nick Saban? Like, it writes itself. And then in the other matchup, you have Steve Sarkisian going against a place that really put him on the map at Washington. People forget, before Steve Sarkisian went to Toddy's school at USC and became a drunk fool, that he got his start at UW in Seattle for the Huskies. And so there's a lot going into this game, and there's going to be a lot of storylines going into that game. And storylines sell. And you know what else sells? Controversial television. And that's what we saw yesterday on ESPN with the college football selection show, because, yeah, and even Georgia being left out. You could argue that Georgia should have been in the top 4, because if we're just thinking about the best 4 teams in the nation, it's probably, and not in any order, but it's probably Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and Georgia. But they probably didn't want to have 2 SEC schools in there again if they didn't have to. And, you know, they got to put Texas in there, because if you're going to include Alabama, you got to put Texas in there just because they have the head-to-head win in Tuscaloosa. And so all of that said, I do think the College Football Playoff Committee got it right, but there's always going to be controversy, and that's why we're moving to a 12-team playoff next year.
Yeah, the 12-team playoff next year is going to be kind of wish it would have happened a year earlier this year, because I feel like there's a bunch of good teams.
USC still wouldn't have made it.
And they won't make it next year. This was their last year to contend. It's big.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Toddy. You've been coming at us all year long. So Kevin and I, we have a lot built up towards USC.
Yeah, we're already looking for guys in the portals, so it's kind of hinting that Malachi Nelson isn't ready. So maybe Malachi Nelson will support her as well, because he wants to play. So I don't see why he wouldn't.
He gives a chance to
maybe he might play in the Holiday Bowl. We'll see. But
he's definitely playing.
Yeah, I hope he does.
Well, and you know, peace out to Julian Fleming and Kyle McCord. You know, I'm gonna miss Fleming, but you know, that's just the way that college sports works nowadays. So that's just how it goes. And we will do a full preview of the college football playoff before the semifinal matchups happen on it's New Year's Eve that it happens, I believe.
New Year's
and
Day.
So or New Year's Day. Okay, so it's coming up at the end of the year or beginning of next year. And so we'll talk about these matchups more in depth when those come up, but we just wanted to give our instant reactions and all of that. Kevin,